everyone. Welcome to our Distance Learning with eSpark webinar series. I'm Elizabeth. I'm the head of professional learning and support at eSpark, and I'm thrilled to have Hillary on the line with me today. Hillary is going to be sharing a little bit about how we can create connection and community during this time of school closures. Hillary, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share what I've learned so far.
Excellent. I'm excited as well. Let me tell you all a little bit about Hillary before we jump in. Hillary is currently a fourth grade teacher in San Jose, California. She's been teaching for 6 years, and she also has experience teaching third grade and sixth, seventh, and eighth grades. She's adapted really quickly to use tools to engage and create community for her students and families. So we're really excited to hear from her and learn from her today. Hillary's going to be sharing some strategies for creating community with students and families during this time of school closures. She's going to talk to us about strategies for creating community. She's going to share some great mental health resources for students and teachers and parents and you. And she's also going to discuss ways that we can lend support to families during this time of crisis. Let's start by talking a little bit about creating community. Hillary, how have you created community virtually?
Yeah, there have been a few really key tools that have helped me in creating community. So I've been hosting a lot of virtual Zoom meetings with students and families. I've created a YouTube channel where I've recorded teaching and yoga meditation videos for students, and then used Flipgrid. So I'll start by talking about these virtual Zoom meetings. I've been hosting whole class meetings every day at the same time to help students become aware of when they need to be prepared for these calls. We've used these virtual meetings with students to go over academics for the day, as well as to do check-ins and build community by having morning meetings. We've done one-on-one check-ins through Zoom, as well as family meetings. So when I've been on these Zoom calls, something that's been really helpful for students is to keep the same structures that we would in the classroom. I think this is really comforting to create some sort of normalcy in a time of chaos. And it's also helped to make these meetings effective and not totally chaotic. So one thing I'd recommend is making sure that you set these expectations when you start your meetings, and go ahead and mute all students when you have them enter so that you can still maintain some control and they can hear you. Another really wonderful thing we've done is start our morning Zoom calls with a morning meeting. And again, these calls are every day at 10:30. So students have gotten used to them, they're excited for them. And we've started with some sort of community builder question, something as simple as what was the favorite part of your weekend, or tell us your best joke you have today. And the next thing that I mentioned is recording some teaching videos. So again, your students miss you and they want to see you, and it's fun for them to see somewhat of a regular lesson. But we also understand that at a time like this, every family is in a bit of a different situation, and not all kids can be on a video call all day. So for that reason, me and the other teacher at my school have created YouTube channels where we're recording videos. Elizabeth, would you like me to play a little bit of this video here?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and play a bit?
Hello, scholars. Today I'm going to teach you a quick lesson on main idea, since that's our focus for the week in RPH. Let's start by reminding ourselves, what is main idea? As I read this first sentence in the title, Lewis and Clark's Faithful Companion, it says, when Lewis and Clark explored the Western United States, a dog named Seaman protected them. Right away, I noticed that I'm reading facts. So I'm going to go ahead and annotate here that this is nonfiction. So I'm just going to put NF. That tells me I'm reading nonfiction.
So in that video, one thing that you saw there is the tools that you can use from Zoom once you've recorded, while you're recording a lesson. So at the top, you'll see a button right here. You can see it on my screen that says annotate, and you're able to take notes there, as I did in that video, for students to see. We've gotten some good feedback from kids around these, that it's great to be able to pause and go back and use it to help them answer questions. And the third thing I mentioned to help create community is using this program called Flipgrid. if you have a Google Classroom account with your students already, you can very easily link this in, which is great. And what this platform does is allows students to record videos of themselves, and then you can also allow them to comment on each other's videos. It would be important to set some expectation and rules here to make sure that all students are following directions and being respectful. But the great thing is they're able to see each other's faces, which they love, and helps create that community. And there's some really awesome things you can do here. So 2 ideas are, 1, to create a first chapter Friday, where students all record themselves reading the first chapter of a book they love, and they're all able to see each other's videos and comments, and you can make it a competition. Some teachers at our school are doing March Madness with which book is the greatest. And another idea is to host a talent show. So students are recording themselves doing a special talent, and you vote and decide whose talent was the best that week. So those are some ideas that have helped create community and excitement for our students during this hard time.
Thanks so much, Hillary. I love that you shared both ideas for how you can engage live with your kiddos over Zoom, and also some great ideas for recording videos if students might not be able to engage in real time. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Let's talk next a little bit about some mental health resources for students and teachers. We know there are a lot of resources out there right now, and it can be really hard to determine which ones to recommend to your families. And the great thing is Hillary has vetted a number of these resources and has some really great tips to share with us. So Hillary, what resources do you recommend to support well-being for teachers and students right now?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I think it is really hard and overwhelming, and it's great there's so many resources, but there are a lot. So these 4 things here is how I'm going to break it down for us today. I'm going to talk a bit about having structure and schedules, some podcasts I recommend, as well as some teletherapy organizations, mindfulness and meditation apps and programs for you as well as your students, and a few other activities that my students have really enjoyed. So I'll start with this idea of schedule and structure. We all know, especially as teachers, that students thrive off of structure. We have a very structured day, and so at a time when suddenly we're doing virtual learning, it can be hard to know how to bring that structure back. So I read this article that I would recommend maybe even sending to some of your families if you think it'd be useful, of tips on someone who has been in isolation for a whole year. It's a wonderful article and the biggest thing that I would take away from this article is that a structure and routine is essential at a time like this. So I've created a sample schedule for my students and had this as an assignment in our first week of virtual learning for them to go ahead and fill in any other tasks they might have to do during the day. As we said before, we know that some students might be taking care of siblings or maybe still needing to go to work if their parent or guardian is an essential employee. So we would allow them to adapt, but there are some crucial pieces to the schedule that we would want them to follow and know are important. Students have become so invested in these schedules that when I've tried to interact with them at a separate time, they say, Ms. Blackstone, sorry, that's not on my schedule. So that's been great to see the ownership they've taken. And this will be linked for you. If you would like to use it and make a copy, feel free. It will be available for you after this webinar. Part of what we find important in our schedule and structure is some time to incorporate connection. So add in for yourselves as well time in your schedule to FaceTime with other people, to get outside, maybe to journal. I'll leave us with this quote for this section here. Even in the midst of unprecedented coronavirus pandemic, indeed, especially because of it, now is not the time for social distancing. What we need to be practicing just temporary is physical distancing. So reminding ourselves that this connection to others is so essential and really helpful. So make sure you're incorporating that into your own schedule as well. Second, some podcasts and teletherapy sites I would recommend for yourselves as well as students. This podcast I love. I don't know if any of you have heard of Brene Brown, but she's wonderful and has been really diving into how we are all as a society facing this crisis. And it's useful to know that our feelings that we have are valid and ways to address them. And then some links for you and your students for teletherapy resources, if that's something that you need right now. I would recommend posting those on some sort of family platform you have as well, if you use Class Dojo or an email list, just so people know that that's available. Some mindfulness and meditation resources for you. I mentioned that I've been recording yoga videos for my students, but sometimes they might want to see someone else. So we've got a few sites here. Again, these will be linked. Most of these programs are doing free sessions for people right now. There's some live sessions you could tune into through Journey Meditation. Headspace is wonderful for students as well as educators. My students have listened to quite a few of those recordings, and they're great and very student friendly. So feel free to dive into any of this. Great resources for you there. And finally, some fun ideas that I have here. Combined Minds is an app that I would recommend for students and family to support with mental health. My students have not yet logged on to that, but the middle school teachers have. So if you teach middle school, I definitely recommend that. Setting students up with a daily gratitude journal. I think that grounding ourselves in gratitude is really great. And I've asked my students daily to say something they're grateful for. And I think that helps us get us out of this place of panic and fear and into a more calm center. There's some amazing TED Ed lessons. You can create a free account there, and you can actually just link those lessons to your Google Classroom page. They don't even have to create a new TED Ed account. There's lessons on psychology, there's lessons on science, but allowing students to watch videos and respond with writing is great. Writing a letter to coronavirus. Some of our students have done this, and I think it was a really therapeutic activity for them to either release some anger, or some students were finding gratitude in this time and getting to be with family. So it was a fun activity for them. And then some just really fun self-care bingo. This again will be linked. To do something else away from the screen is essential. And these are some really easy and fun activities for them to try out there.
Thanks so much. That is such a gift that you're giving to all the educators on this call, all of those different resources that we can access for families. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely.
We know this is a hard time right now to be a teacher, a parent, and a student. Let's talk a little bit about how teachers can be supportive during this time of crisis. Hillary, what are some of your recommendations for how teachers can meet the needs of students right now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is to start with your own needs. So be aware that I've been reminding myself that we're on the front lines of this. We have such an important role, and remembering that it's okay for you yourself to feel stressed and anxious and scared, and do what you need for yourself. You're a great role model to your students, and they appreciate that you're taking care of your own needs. Being vulnerable with our students, I think is really important. So addressing and acknowledging that this is hard and this is different, and yet we're going to get through it together, is really powerful. Reach out to others. There are so many amazing resources, as we've just said, and groups. This group on Facebook is pretty amazing, and it is a private group, so you'll need to sign up for it. But once you sign in and prove that you're an educator, there are a plethora of resources, and also just a place to talk to other people. And again, remember that whatever you're feeling, you're not alone in feeling, and it's okay to feel those things. Remember that you have a purpose. You are so important right now. Your students are depending on you, and we're in it together. And just know that you are doing the best that you can, especially if you're on this call right now. It's so clear that you care and you're continuing to strive to get better, and that's wonderful in itself. I'll leave us with this letter, which again, we were going to have our students write a letter. There's also this letter that I found to be so healing for me to read from COVID-19 to us humans. and allow you to read it. But basically just remembering that there are some gifts in this time, and if we can find a way to slow down and recognize that maybe some of these things are here for a reason for us to shift the way we do things, it can be really helpful.
Thanks so much, Hillary, for sharing all of your perspective and your experience. This was really fantastic.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. And to everyone on the line, thank you for everything you're doing for students right now. We know this is an incredibly challenging time. You're being required to try a lot of different things and support your own families right now too. So thank you for all of your work. And like Hillary mentioned, on our webinar landing page, you can find a PDF with links to all of the amazing resources that she shared today, so that you too can go and explore some of these resources to use. You're also able on our webinar landing page to sign up for a live Q&A session if you're interested in speaking with other educators, speaking with myself and my colleagues, and kind of brainstorming ideas for your own distance learning plans. We're happy to have you, and please go and sign up there. And then as always, we're available to support you as well. You can always get in touch with us by emailing support@esparklearning.com. Hillary, thank you again so much for joining us today. Goodbye, everyone.